Good morning to you. The visuals that you are seeing are of a very high police presence here in Windsor East in Johannesburg, where the Red Ants started very early this morning evicting thousands of people, which according to a court order indicates that they've occupied several of the flats in this area illegally. Now, shots had been fired a bit earlier on by the police. That was rubber bullets after there had been some confrontation with some of the residents who were being evicted. You can see here next to me some of the tires that have also just been put out by the Red Ants. Residents retaliated by burning tires in the streets, saying that they've been paying rental at these flats that they've occupied, and they were not aware that their occupation was illegal. Let's move towards this direction to give you a great sense. I do understand at this point, Simpiwe, is that about 19 flats will be raided here this morning. You can see in the street here, just near Windsor East, near one of the supermarkets in this area, people are now trying to salvage all their goods from the side of the road. This would include fridges, beds, as well as hi-fi systems that have been taken out of these apartments. So you've got thousands of people at this stage that remain stranded, and they don't know where they're going to go. But we this morning did manage to speak to one of the authorities from the sheriff's office, and we do understand that the sheriff does have an order to evict these residents under the guise that their occupation in this area is illegal. Well, simply just to give a bit of background as to what has been happening in Windsor. Over a couple of years, SABC News has done several stories with regard to how several buildings within this area have been hijacked. Now, this is one of the once affluent suburbs here in Johannesburg, which has really been downtrodden. The SABC has done quite a number of stories and exposés about the sale of drugs and how some of the buildings here have been hijacked, and you'd find that in an apartment, perhaps that is supposed to accommodate 3 people to the maximum, you'd find about 19 people living in those apartments. And the Residents Association here in Windsor East has really been up in arms over several years in trying to clean up the situation. But I'll move you towards this direction. Our camera person, Gabi, is with us here this morning, and we'll just show you what really is taking place here. Everything has been put on the side of the road, and very few of the residents want to speak to us at this stage, but off camera they are telling us that they've been paying rent to whom they believed was a landlord, and now they woke up this morning very early and found that the Red Ants had been banging on their doors and telling them to leave the apartments. Let's move a bit more towards this direction as well. You can see here much of what is trying to be salvaged. We'll see if we can't speak to some of the affected residents, while many of them do not want to be captured on camera at this stage. But the sense they have at this point is they feel that the Red Ants have acted improperly, and they're saying that they did not receive any notification that this operation was going to get underway. There are women, there are children, there are men. Those who were supposed to leave for work early this morning say they are now going to have to see what they are going to have to do, because they do not have accommodation this evening, and it certainly does look like it's going to rain at this stage. Let me try and see if I can't speak just to some of the affected residents, even though it's proven to be quite a challenge over the past couple of minutes. Good morning, ma'am. You seem very emotional at this stage, very emotional residents here. Ma'am, are you one of the affected people here this morning?
Yes, I'm one of them.
Do you know what has happened this morning? You just woke up?
We are not aware that they are coming. It's just a surprise that we can see them the way they are doing.
Have you been paying rent at this apartment, and to whom?
We don't know. We used to pay Mafadi. We took it from the agents.
So you've been consistently paying rent, and now you're being evicted?
No, it's I think 2 or 3 months that we didn't yet pay. That we are in community, like the way we are claiming our right to to pull up the rent down, that the rent was too high, water bill, the no maintenance. So we are claiming that they can pull down the rent, that we can be able to pay, that the salary we are getting and the rent we couldn't afford to pay. That was the problem. But they didn't want to do that. That's the problem.
Do you know where you're going to go now?
I don't have any place to go. I'm with my child here. He didn't even go to school. He's somewhere around here. We didn't go to school. The other one day, another one day. We don't have any place to go. As you can see that we are in the street now. We are homeless. We don't have a place to go.
Right, just some of the sentiments here from residents, some of them also waking up this morning. Siswam, sir, if you could just move towards this direction for me. Ma'am, I see you're still in your nightgown. You woke up this morning and you told me that you just found people banging on your door.
Yeah, I found them banging on the door and then I was sleeping. I really don't even know what is happening. I'm still shocked, surprised. I'm from work, I'm working night shift. Now I don't know where to go, what to do.
All right. Do you live alone or do you live with your children?
I'm living alone.
You're living alone. All right. Did you receive any notification about this impending raid from anyone? Have you been paying your rent?
Yes, I did pay my rent, but I didn't get any notice from anybody.
That is just some of the sentiments shared here. What's really taking place now, you could see that some of the affected residents have brought in some bakkies and have started loading some of their belongings, some of them, many of them in fact, not sure about where they're going to go to next. We'll move towards this direction. The red ants have moved from this area, Simpiwe, and we do understand that close to 19 other flats in this area that are believed, according to the Red Ants and to the Sheriff's Office, are illegally occupied, that they will also conduct raids at several of these areas. I must say, Simpiwe, over the past couple of years, in my many encounters within this particular area, we've heard from the Windsor Residents Association about the stress that they have been undergoing because of the situation here in Windsor East. I did already indicate it's been one of the affluent suburbs over the past couple of years in this area that has really deteriorated over the past couple of years, and they've been finding, including the city of Johannesburg and the owners of this area, have been finding it extremely hard to try and deal with the situation in this area. It really has deteriorated over the past couple of years. I'll ask our camera person, Kabi Njokweni, to come with me this way. The Red Ants have now moved just up the road here where I will take you, and that is where they are raiding at this point. So I'll just move towards this direction and try to get you there much faster. And residents themselves have been saying that the area itself, if I must point out this, Simpiwe, has deteriorated such that the police in this area, inclusive, are not able to deal with the situation. We have visited this area several times, and some of the apartments that you see here, while others may be quite well run, there are others where you would find many of the hijacked buildings, as well as people who say that they've been paying rent to some landlords who basically have hijacked these apartments. And I'm a bit out of breath there, Simpiwe, you forgive me, but we'll come towards this direction here. I hope we don't receive any resistance from the Red Ants at this point. There had been, gentlemen, if you could just come through, thank you very much. Gabi, come this way. This is just one of the other flats as well that has been raided here this morning, and very much like what we saw at the previous block of flats, many of the belongings of the residents who were staying here have been moved outside here, and I guess they too at this stage are unable to say where they will go. You could see here mattresses again, some of the fridges as well. And let's see if we can we have a word with you, ma'am? Another very emotional resident. Ma'am, you don't want to speak to us at this stage. Well, some of them quite emotional. Simpiwe, and not able to speak to us at this stage. Ma'am, do you know where you'll be going today? Sorry?
I don't know.
All right. And this morning, were you on your... Okay. Ma'am, are you all right? Ma'am? Okay, I think I'm just going to leave some of them because they're extremely emotional and they don't know where they're going to go. Some of these trucks that have been brought in here, well, obviously you have the red ants that would act on an order that has been granted by the court. So whenever you see this kind of activity, Simpiwe, you would know then that it is a legal document that then gives right for the red ants, and whether it is the city of Johannesburg, to conduct these kinds of raids on the premise that they believe there is illegal occupation. But one of the many questions that have been asked about areas like Windsor, you'd hear from some of the residents who've indicated that they have been paying rent for a number of months, and there's a particular company, which I cannot mention at this stage, pending some investigation by the SABC, that a particular company itself has been in the news for quite some time now over allegations that rent has been taken from some of the people who occupy these flats, including the ones that have been raided here today. But it's not exactly sure where that money goes to and whether that money is paid to the city of Johannesburg or to the owners of these flats here in Windsor East. But what we can say for certain is that these residents don't know where they're going to go, and the Residents Association in this area, who we've spoken to quite a number of times, have been quite up in arms over the situation in Windsor East, which has been one of the affluent suburbs. I'll tell you a personal story there, Simpiwe. A couple of years ago, I too wanted to rent an apartment in this area and simply couldn't afford it. This was plus minus about 10 years ago, and I simply couldn't afford it. It was extremely affluent. You had green trees and a lot of security in this area. I simply couldn't afford it. But if you look at how the situation has deteriorated here in Windsor now, you would find that some of the apartments are letted out to 10 people at a go, and what really separates the families and their children are simply curtains, and you would have one of the rooms, basically a curtain used to separate one room to accommodate at least 5 families. So that has been one of the bones of contention from the Residents Association in this area. But of course, you also get those residents who are trying to live well in this area with their children and their families, and they're also caught up in all of this. Sisi, I see that. Okay. Guys, I'm just trying to find out whether you've been paying your rent. What is the challenge? You're obviously very emotional at this time. You woke up this morning and the red ants have just come here. Perhaps, ma'am, you don't want to show your face on air, but have you been paying your rent?
Yes.
You have been. And then this morning, were you given any indication about why this is happening?
No, please, I can't speak.
Sorry?
I can't speak now.
All right. She cannot speak now. We're really trying to see if we can get much of the sentiment, Simpiwe, but of course we need to be sensitive to their situation at this time, as many of them don't know where they're going to go. Let's move towards this direction once again. The red ants have been quite busy this morning. We can't speak to any of them, of course. There are proper channels that we do need to follow. The situation itself quite much more relaxed, if I may, at this time. Because a bit earlier on, residents had tried to give some resistance to the raids that have been taking place, and we saw some tires that were burning and a few stones that were being thrown at the red ants, as well as the media ourselves that are here this morning. So we'll try to move to as many of the areas as possible here in Windsor East, where these raids will continue at this time. We'll also try to speak to the police, because I do understand we'll have about plus minus 19 of these flats here in Windsor East that will be raided. We'll try to get much more information, as well as exactly what that court order from the Sheriff's Office does entail with regard to the eviction of these thousands of people that are now affected here in Windsor East. I'll hand back to you for now, Simpiwe, but we'll certainly cross to you in later bulletins with an update of exactly how many more of these apartments have been raided.
All right, Chriselda, thank you. We'll certainly cross back to you in just a while. That's Chriselda Lewis speaking to us at Windsor East, wherein the Red Ants have been conducting what's notoriously known as evictions. All right, it is 10:32. Let's now